Don't be scared. It's worse if you're scared. It Feeds was written and directed by Chad Archibald, and that's a name that needs to make a comeback. Archibald, that is. You don't hear about too many children named Archibald. You don't hear about anybody playing for the New York Giants getting like 3 touchdowns. Here's Archibald in the end zone once again. Or Archibald holding up the Lombardi Trophy. Or Archibald hitting like 4 home runs for the Seattle Mariners and holding up the World Series. Well, who am I kidding? The Seattle Mariners are never going to win the goddamn World Series. They've had their chance. They keep blowing it. You keep blowing it. You're lying to us, Seattle Mariners. You're lying to us. That being said, his name is Chad. Hopefully he's just named Chad and not a Chad. If you get it, you get it. But that being said, Chad status aside, let's talk about Chad Archibald, who did some other projects. And you can check out his IMDb page for the full list of his work, wrapping up the Chad Archibald chapter of this particular review. This film features Cynthia, a clairvoyant mother who can see into the spirit world and parlays this gift to being able to help people, basically. If they've had trauma in their life, she can just touch their foreheads and she can see into their past. She can see what trauma is bothering them. She can figure out a way to help them. This gift will take a lot out of her. There is stuff that happens when she encounters whatever, is bothering them that, affects her in the real world. If she gets cut, if she gets burned, that stays with her. And Cynthia is played by the incredibly gifted, gorgeous, and very, very, very photogenic Ashley Greene. I love Ashley Greene. Ever since the first Twilight, and her career has been on a fucking pendulum. It's gone back and forth. I mean, it pretty much ended up right at the bottom with The Apparition. Apparition was a possession-based horror that Ashley Greene, I guess, was just given a lot of money for, or it was a contract movie. It was really, really fucking bad. And I had worries that It Feeds was going to be like The Apparition. Thankfully, it wasn't. Thankfully, It Feeds is far, 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 far above The Apparition, which would sound like faint praise because anybody that has seen The Apparition, I've mentioned The Apparition so much, it has lost all meaning. That movie was terrible. I may retro review that for October, but I was a little bit worried based on the poster, based on the description. I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily know how good this is going to be, but let's check it out. I like Ashley Greene quite a bit and think that she is very good. And then I checked some scores. As I was watching, I go, wait, people really like this. Okay, I'll check it out. Why the hell not? Now, Ashley Greene can't do this alone. A mother can't do this alone. She has a daughter, Jordan, played by Ellie O'Brien. And I have to say, the way Ellie looks in this, the way Ashley looks in this, they found 2 actresses that look like they could be related. They look like they could be mother and daughter. I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if that's just genetics, whatever. These 2 look like they could be mother and daughter. Good casting there. So Cynthia and Jordan get wrapped up in something involving a girl named Riley, not Ace of Spies. Disappointed. Deep cut that absolutely nobody under a certain age bracket will get. But basically, Riley is saying that an entity is after her. And then a mystery unfolds and other stuff unfolds and everything. It takes a few twists and turns, and it won't reinvent the wheel as far as possession-based horror. It will, it does rely on the jump scare noises a bit too much, but it is also very atmospheric, very well shot. I think Ellie was magnificent in this. I thought Ashley was very good. And I thought for a modest budget horror movie, although I did laugh at the fact that they couldn't list what town the police were in. It was just police on the door, which made me laugh, but it is what it is. That adds to the charm. It ends up being paced rather well. Now, there is a character, Agatha, Juno Rinaldi, who provides a little bit of comic relief. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's a little bit off, and that's not necessarily her fault. It's probably the tone of the movie. And also, there's a dad. Riley's dad, Randall, Sean Ashmore. I've seen him in a few things. And also the creature is played by Brooklyn Marshall, who looks a lot different when you take the makeup off. Also looks like she's a bit of a dancer. That being said, It Feeds actually turns out pretty goddamn good. There are a couple loose ends or a couple weird things that I think, leave a few more questions like, why did we include that? But as far as a mostly straight narrative, I thought It Feeds worked out pretty well. It is streaming on Hulu if you want to check it out. But yeah, mostly positive stuff. I mean, really nothing negative, except there's just some standard stuff that you would get into. And that you would be, thinking, okay, well, that's just standard possession horror stuff. There's nothing necessarily like, holy shit. And there is actually a satisfying conclusion. I will say that much, and the family strife was a nice tone. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. What I mean is the family strife, because the dad passed away, and it actually turned out that the dad had taken his own life. The dad had the gift as well, but the dad unfortunately just couldn't take it anymore. There was some case, something, whatever it was. And that's something that has haunted Jordan. And again, Ellie, I think, was the big shining star here. And I mean that, like, seriously. Like, I thought, as far as somebody I had not really heard of, I may need to check out a bit more of her work. I thought she did a very good job, and I thought Ashley was a nice anchor. But I know that Ashley Greene is just beautiful. Good grief, she's beautiful. And she is having a weird vision. Helping a guy named Larry, a patient named Larry. The Wolf and the Boy, there's a book. It says, help me, he's got me. And it ties to this coach that apparently was abusing boys. Either abusing them or killing them. Probably in that order, if we're being perfectly honest. But there's Larry's obviously traumatized by this stuff, but he's still alive as an adult. And the coach is like all, this kind of stuff. And Larry's locked in a cage, and she says, I can't let you out. Only you can when you're ready. When you're ready to let go of this as much as you can. It's an adult looking for Larry, as I've said. There's 3 wrestling fans that will get that. And what happens in the spirit world will carry over. Cuts, burns, trauma. And then there's a cop that basically does some investigating for Cynthia. And it's funny that Cynthia wants to keep this, gift of her secret and just have a front of her being a therapist. But her friend Agatha knows. She's also a friend of Jordan, and also the cop knows. And it seems like enough people know. I mean, it's a small town, but that was one where I was like, okay, I mean, I kind of understand you don't want to be like the Warrens. You want to just keep your stuff to the side because you don't want to expose your family to that, what remains of your family. But still, I was like, all right, that's a little bit odd, but it is what it is. It's fine. So, and I did note that, okay, Ashley and Ellie could be related because of how they look. So Riley shows up and says an entity is locked onto her. The dad is having none of it, though. Even though Jordan tries to get some answers, she doesn't get enough. Jordan decides, eventually, I'm going to go to the house because that's what you fucking do on your own and everything. Her mother did say that basically, I hope when you realize that, you may be able to use the gift to either to know when to help and to know when to protect yourself. So, the dad had the ability. He's dead, took his own life, some variety, and that's obviously haunted Jordan. She hasn't wanted to confront that, and Cynthia has tried to protect her from it, but also to keep her, abreast of it if she's ready. I did not say abreast intentionally because of Ashley Greene. How dare you accuse me of that? I thought Agatha might have actually been in on it because she was a little too golly gee, oh shucks, but I mean the character, but it was fine. She was fine for what it was. So it turns out that the coach, Doug, actually does have a record. And Jordan ends up going to see Riley because she figures out her address. And the dad is like, I have a client and I'm busy. She sees that Riley is in the basement, goes to get her. And it's a scene that takes a little bit long with the walks down the hallway and everything. There are a few minutes I think that could have been trimmed off of this movie. It's an hour and 42 minutes, and I think a nice tight 90 probably would have worked. But it wasn't dull, it wasn't bloated. I just saw where cuts could be made. And it's not an attention thing, because I've seen movies that are 3 goddamn hours. But nevertheless, she breaks into the basement, and I'm getting barbarian vibes. Thankfully, no weird. Well, there is a weird creature, the entity, but he's locked you down here. He doesn't lock me down here. He locks them down here. So now she's trapped by Randall, the dad, and basically the entity needs to feed or it'll feed on her. So basically Riley is locked, or the entity's locked onto Riley. And also the entity was locked onto the mother and everything. So there's a victim there, and I thought the victim might have actually been the mother, but no. Riley then basically is going to go off with Randall to do some more stuff to get more victims, I guess, because otherwise this entity is just going to continue to feed on Riley when you probably could just leave a victim there and go. But whatever, I mean, I guess it would find a way to get towards you. So Riley basically gives Jordan a way to cut herself out. And then Randall gets a gun, and Randall is going to shoot. But then the woman that is either the kidnapped victim, or the mother just runs at her and just does and attacks Randall, but not before he gets one shot off. And she's shot. She, being Riley, shot in the neck, and because Jordan was holding on to her, the entity latches onto her, like the doll, like the blood from the doll. Or the blood from the cultist getting into the Annabelle doll. By the way, I will be I won't be retro-reviewing. I will be reviewing the new Conjuring coming up in just a couple weeks. But all the Conjuring movies, universe movies, I believe are on Max, HBO Max. So now it's attached to Jordan. She's having nightmares. Randall decides to he runs away basically. And the idea now is Cynthia has to figure out a way to save Jordan. This is well shot and atmospheric is what I noted. Some good camera work here, some good crew work. So, at one point, Cynthia tries to, do the finger thing and figure out, she decides to get the answers out like that. But then, there's this house with these tendrils. It's a younger version of her daughter, trying to work through all this trauma, but then eventually Agatha needs to slap her awake when a push would have sufficed, but no, she had to slap her. Because you need to be slapped awake sometime. I've had that happen. I won't say how, but I'll just move on. Then Larry makes an appearance again. He works at a hospital, talks about the mother Samantha, who was investigated by Dr. Whitaker, who's retired since then. Samantha had the same symptoms and said something's in her, and she grabbed the doctor, and the doctor has burns. And this entity feeds had burns on goddamn Riley from like the shoulders, the arms, and stuff like that. Burns were all over. Yeah, Jordan, Riley, all this stuff. It just, whatever this entity is. So it turns out Samantha was some kind of nurse. She made trips out to other countries and brought something back with her. That's really about all we get. And I'm not saying that we needed more explanation, but like, okay, she got this attachment, whatever. Let's accept it and move on. Jordan's having some nightmares, and also this entity really, really wants to feed. And then Randall suddenly shows up and kidnaps her and buries her, because the entity will feed on her and the entity will die. Now, that's sound logic, but the problem is Jordan is going to die, and we don't really need that. So he buries her alive. The entity is with Jordan. Feed me. Feed me, Seymour. The cops got Doug the coach, and something about missing kids. See, that was something that at least tied into her gift and everything, but I feel that if they just did the thing and just had the stuff with Larry, that would have been just fine. But then again, I guess tying Larry in with that and telling about the money, it made sense. But it's like, I would have almost liked to have known more about the coach, but then that would have padded the runtime. So she gets in Randall's head and basically keeps going deeper and deeper. I'm not thinking about deeper and Ashley Green. How dare you think that? And basically sees the family strife, the mother dying, the entity that was latched onto her latches onto Riley, the basement stuff, going deeper, Brooker's Lake, and you have to basically leave her or otherwise she's going to die, is what Randall says. Agatha goes with her. They take some shovels from Randall's truck after he tries to turn himself in, and he's out of the picture. He's just there. I assume he's Gonna get arrested for a lot of bodies because there's a lot of remains at that goddamn house. And they find Jordan, conveniently, very quickly, by the way. There are points where this film seems a little bit rushed. Just saying, after they need to cut some stuff. But it's like, yeah, it is what it is. It's fine. Pacing issues aside, it feeds is actually pretty good. And Cynthia does, another thing, stuff like that, and she's trying to figure out what's going on. Agatha distracts the cops with some comedy that doesn't necessarily hit, but it is what it is. She keeps going deeper, gets into the thing's lair, whatever this entity is. It says, take me instead. So Ashley just cannot stop staying possessed. And she ends up in whatever layer this thing has. It's like this deep underground area as opposed to a high underground area. And this thing's sitting on a throne saying, feed me. You're hungry. We get it. This is where it turns like the comedy route. And she has a sword, dressed in a very, very nice gown, by the way, I do want to say, because Ashley is just fabulous. And the dad had taken his own life. And then basically Jordan ends up finally freeing her mother, but taking her fingers off, but that didn't work. Jordan has to, again, know when to help and when to protect herself. She decides to help her mother. She's doing the stuff. She's got the power. She's got the look. I probably screwed that up right there. I think that was a Roxette song. And she gets the sword, also feed on this, stabs the entity through the goddamn jaw, like right through the mouth, and then starts stabbing. They basically get metal implements and stab and kill this entity that I guess you can just do. Not a very good entity if you can kill it that easily. I mean, yes, I guess it wouldn't be qualified as easy, but still. They just use the power of friendship and mother and daughterhood, which I actually don't think daughterhood is a word, but it is now. And there you are. They kill the entity. 6 months later, there's more more of this, the going deeper, the therapy sessions, where Jordan is finally ready to let her dad go, free him from the hanging and everything in the attic. And there you are. And even though basically, she's got burns on her and stuff like that, she's going to heal. Her mother's going to heal. Maybe we'll get It Feeds too, and we'll actually get some more explanation. So I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel. If you get the returning writer-director, you get the returning crew, you expand on the story, I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel, because this was actually pretty good. Despite the loose ends and despite the issues, I'm going to, fuck it. A-. Why not A-? I mean, fuck, I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. There you go. Compared to a lot of the horror slop I've seen this year and last year and the years before that, this is something that I would definitely recommend. Even with its warts, even with its flaws. Agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin, and until we feed again, happy trails to you.